What's good, everybody? It's your boy Matthew Maley for MatthewMaley.com. Well, got the jersey back on, front of the camera, and even though fantasy season is over, the playoffs are here. And as Jim Mora so famously quoted years ago, playoffs? This is where the fun really starts. So, I'm back. We don't have to worry about fantasy. Don't have to do any recap of that. Don't have to worry about the Cardinals and all their problems and troubles, not having a coach, all that. Let's get right into the real action. So, because obviously my team is still around, we'll finish with the Ravens and get into all of the emotions that have been going on this week. But first, let's do a wrap-up of all the other games and let you know what happened in the first opening round weekend of the 2012 football season. Well, it's actually 2013 now, but technically it's still 2012-2013 football season. So let's get right into the wild card weekend playoff recap. So first off, like I said, we're going to finish with the Ravens. So first off, we will start with the Texans. Texans were having to play the Bengals. Sadly, Texans had all the chances in the world to lock up a top 2 seed, not have to worry about playing opening weekend, having a home field advantage to the playoffs, and they proceeded to lose 3 out of the last 4 games, games that all were very winnable games. And next thing you know, they dropped to a 3rd seed, end up having to play the Bengals, which were the 6th seed, in opening weekend. And amazingly, the Texans, who were giant killers all season, well, a good part of the season, they did have a couple stumbles, were only a 4-point favorite. Amazingly. The final score ended up being 19-13. The Texans won, but it really wasn't even that close of a game, in my opinion. The Bengals looked outclassed through most of it, and it kind of looked like at any time the Texans could turn it on. That's, in my opinion, how it looked like. That not that they were toying with them, but that they could have made it a much more brutal game if they wanted to. The big highlight is Arian Foster ended up carrying the ball 32 times. He had, if I'm not mistaken, 40 total touches, which is a career high, if I'm not mistaken. Ended up getting 32 carries for 140 yards and a touchdown, and looked really good. Really, the team in general looked good. The defense looked good. Jonathan Joseph had a couple great pass defenses against A.J. Green. That was the big matchup. And Jonathan Joseph used to play for the Bengals, so that was a little, intrigue to it. So Texans won, going to be moving on. Next game was the Packers versus the Vikings. Now, as you guys know, Week 17, the Vikings beat the Packers, and that's essentially what got them into the playoffs. Difference is, that was in Minnesota. Having to go into Lambeau, the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, is a lot more difficult. Especially when last minute you find out that your starting quarterback, Christian Ponder, is unable to go, and Joe Webb, the backup, is going to have to start. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember the exact numbers on it, but either Joe Webb started less than 2 games in his career, or 2 games in his career, I believe. None this season, 2 last season, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, when you're not only having to play the Packers, having to play the Packers in Lambeau, and now having to add that your starting quarterback isn't there, ugh, good luck. So, ended up, Packers won 24-10. Sadly, Adrian only had 22 carries for 99 yards. Really just couldn't get much going. Even though Christian Ponder isn't the greatest of quarterbacks, having him back there offered a little bit more of a potential throwing, risk for the Packers defense. Having Joe Webb back there, they could just stack the box even more than they already do. And when Joe Webb did have some open throws, he missed a lot of them pretty openly. And it wasn't a pretty game, we'll say that. I didn't watch a lot of that game. I tried to, but I ended up just switching over, and I think I watched some Storage Wars. So that's how it was of a game. But still, I want to give one last shout out to Adrian Peterson for having an absolutely incredible year. Sadly, like I said last week, he did not beat Eric Dickerson's record But regardless, the fact that he came back from a truly destroyed knee to do what he did this past year is incredible. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with MVP, if it's going to be him or Peyton, and which one of them is going to get comeback player of the year as well. So I'm definitely curious to see that. Then we go also in that game, Aaron Rodgers did a pretty good game, went 22 of 33 for 274 yards and a touchdown. So pretty decent game. Their running game actually went pretty well. They picked back up Ryan Grant and Guy Harris, who was actually running really well. Little funny anecdote, 3 weeks ago, Harris was actually selling cars in Jacksonville, Florida. Well, attempting to sell cars, he said. He, in fact, did not sell a car. Got close a couple times, but never actually sold one. So he goes from from attempting to sell cars in Jacksonville, Florida, to scoring a touchdown in a playoff game. Pretty awesome. And then we get to the final game, which was Seattle versus Washington. Now, it was actually taking place in Washington, but Seattle was a 3-point favorite. They were the only team of this opening round that was an away team but was favored. I actually ended up picking Washington. I thought Seattle might win, but I thought that it would be by by 3 points or less, honestly. I thought it would be a last-second field goal by, I think it's Hushka's their kicker. I don't know. That's kind of what I thought it would be. But it ended up being 24-14. Seattle won. Amazingly, two opening drives, or the first two drives of Washington, they had two great drives. One was 80 yards, one was like 70 yards. Marched right down Seattle's throat. Ended up scoring 2 touchdowns. We're up 14-0. And then RG3 tweaks his knee a little bit. And it kind of seemed like Seattle's defense woke up. And next thing you know, Seattle scores 24 unanswered points. It was totally a tale of two halves, a lot of which I felt... a lot of it does go back to the fact that RG3 was a shell of himself out there. But at the same time, I think it also took Seattle's defense a little bit to get started. But once they did, they looked really good. RG3 ended up having a pretty dismal line of 10 for 19 for only 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. But like I said, he did get injured like 3 different times. The last time pretty severely. His knee bent like out and down, like 2 ways that it really shouldn't. So I'm worried to see what's going to happen. Dr. James Andrews, the legendary, famed surgeon, was actually on the sidelines and came out when RG3 got injured, but it doesn't look good. So, and it's the same knee that he tore the ACL in when he was at Baylor in 2009, I think. So I'm a little worried to see what happens with that. I'm not a Washington fan or an RG3 fan, but it is always nice seeing these new talents and teams that used to be shit getting good. So definitely curious to see what happens with that. Hopefully the MRI doesn't show any structural damage and it's just a sprain, but we'll see. Other disappointment was Alfred Morris only had 16 carries for 80 yards. He's been, just murdering people on the field and definitely had a kind of dismal game. But Seattle has a good defense. Not Adrian Wilson, wow. I'm having the most brain fart ever right now. Wilson, the quarterback for Seattle, what is his name? Seriously, what is his name? Alright, I seriously got to think of this. I'm sorry for this dead air. I don't know why I just had a total brain fart right here. Come on. Russell Wilson. Wow, I don't know what happened there. My brain just stopped working. Oh, I gotta start doing more like Sudoku puzzles or something because my brain just stopped working. I gotta defrag my brain. But Russell Wilson ended up going 15 for 26 with 187 yards and a touchdown. And Beast Mode, Marshawn Lynch, ended up going 20 carries for 132 yards and a touchdown. Really solid game for him. So all 3 of those teams will be moving on, and Washington is sent packing. So now let's get to the game that really matters, the Ravens game. Playing Indianapolis. Sadly, the Ravens lost a few games that they should have won towards the end of the season. So they had no chance at securing a first-round bye. And I obviously had to play opening weekend. And it was a little scary because Indianapolis ended up actually with a better record than than the Ravens did. Plus, they're a very inspired team. They're playing for Chuck Pagano. They're playing for revitalization of the entire organization with Andrew Luck. So I was a little worried going in, honestly. Plus, I really like the whole Chuck Strong campaign. So I guess it's one of those things. If the Ravens had to lose, I guess I would have been happier that it be them for the sake of Chuck Pagano. But thankfully, we didn't have to cross that bridge. And the biggest thing, and I really do think it helped, and even though it's crushing me, is Ray Lewis came out and said that he's going to be retiring at the end of the season. Part of the reason I'm wearing the Ray jersey, going to be wearing it through the rest of the playoffs, hopefully all the way through to a Super Bowl win, really hopefully. But definitely very sad to see. Been my favorite player for a lot of years now, and to have him, retiring, it's tough, honestly. When you're younger and you're watching these superheroes that you see on the football field, you just always expect they're going to be around. You never expect they're going to retire. But sadly, that happens. Everybody does at some point, and the fact that he got 17 years is pretty amazing. Plus, he's really doing it for the sake of his son. His son got a full scholarship to Miami, and he'd always said that if his son got a full ride, as he said, Daddy will be there. So there's already rumors coming out that he's in the process of negotiating a sportscasting position with ESPN for a multi-year deal. I really hope that's the case. But everything about this game just had just the feeling of intensity to it. What I loved even from the very beginning, and technically this will be the very last home game that Ray Lewis ever plays in Baltimore. So it meant a lot, I mean, he's been the face of that franchise after Jonathan Ogden. I mean, it was him and Jonathan Ogden were the first two picks. And when Ogden retired like 6 years ago, it's been all Ray. And yeah, Ed Reed, and yeah, Suggs, and before that Bart Scott as well, and Nata and Flacco and Rice. But Ray's the face of the Ravens, period. So I loved it. Like each one of the people that came out, like Suggs did almost like he kind of did like a little Ray Lewis dance kind of, and then kind of pointed backwards. And Ed Reed came out, he's like shh, and he's like pointing back at Ray, and then Ray comes out and grabs a chunk full of turf, throws it into his chest, and does the most impassioned version of his dance ever. And I got goosebumps. I can't even front. I just got goosebumps just thinking about it. Like, it was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome. So, thankfully, Ravens got a win. Ended up winning 24-9, and really, surprisingly, I don't even think the score was that close in terms of how the game played out. But what's surprising is the Ravens had less first downs, had 30 less plays, was almost 2-1 in time of possession negative, had way more penalties, but when it really counted, the Ravens showed up. We were 3 for 5 in the red zone. Indianapolis was 0 for 3. Flacco had an okay game, went 12 for 23 for 282 yards and 2 touchdowns for a QBR of 89.5 and 125.6 rating. Andrew Luck went 28 for 54. He threw 54 times for 267 yards and an interception, but no touchdowns. Ended up with a QBR of 27.2 and a rating of 59.8. Ray Rice actually didn't have that great of a game. He ended up having 15 carries for 70 yards, but he had 2 fumbles lost, one of which was at a pretty inopportune time, to be quite honest. But thankfully, Pierce had a great game, had 13 carries for 103 yards. And good old Vontae Leach, the fullback, ended up scoring a rushing touchdown. He had 1 carry for 2 yards with the touchdown. The absolute biggest star of the offense was Anquan Bolden, who, for one of the first times since he went to Baltimore, I actually saw the Q from Arizona. And I always had felt that he was underutilized, but also never would live up to what he did in Arizona when he was in Baltimore, because yes, he was a very good receiver, but he also had Fitzy on the other side. So no matter how good you are, in my opinion, he was never as true of a number one option as Baltimore needed him to be. But he ended up having 5 catches for 145 yards and a touchdown. Torrey Smith has 2 catches for 31 yards. Dennis Pitta, tight end, had two catches for 27 yards and a touch. And then we get to the defense, and how fitting that the defensive tackle leader was Ray Lewis. Ended up with 13 tackles, 10 of them solo.
Same here.
Don't know what that is, but okay. Again, my computer's freaking out here. And he had 2 tackles for loss and the 1 pass defense, which should have been an interception, hit him directly in the mitts, and he did a little juggle to it, which would have been great in his last home game to have gotten a pick. Especially since he has 50 takeaways in his career. It would have been nice to add another one to it. Ed Reed had 5 tackles, 2 pass defenses. Terrell Suggs had 2 tackles, 2 QB hits. But the defensive MVP was Paul Kruger. Kruger ended up with only 4 tackles, but he had 2.5 sacks, 5 QB hits, and a pass defense. Every time you looked, he was in the backfield. Putting tons of pressure on Luck. Really just was very impressive. Had a great game. So really, the defense stepped up. And one of my favorite moments of the whole game was as we were kneeling it out. Who was in the very backfield? Ray Lewis. They had him in the back. Like where you have the line, and you have the quarterback, and usually the running back's behind the quarterback when he's going to take the knee, and you have somebody like 5-10 yards back. They had Ray Lewis, the guy 5-10 yards back, and as soon as Flacco kneed, Ray Lewis did another dance, and it was so awesome. I just got goosebumps again, and the whole team came running over to hug him and congratulate him. And I gotta say, I've watched a lot of sports in my life. I've played a lot of sports in my life. I've had a lot of coaches. I've had a lot of inspirational people. I've never, ever seen anyone motivate or lead or inspire the way that Ray Lewis does. If you said I could go back and be a football player, I would rather be a nothing, no-name scrub making the veteran minimum and play with Ray Lewis than sign a $100 million contract. Well, maybe not that much. But, just being able to experience that would be incredible. It would be nuts. Sadly, it'll never happen, but it would be nuts. So, at the end of the day, great Ravens win. Huge test for them next week. They're going to Mile High, play the Broncos. As you guys probably remember from week 15, or 14, we got obliterated by the Broncos. They tore us apart. So it's really going to take a team effort. We're really going to have to pull together if we want to get this win. But I really think that Ray is going to be that inspirational catalyst, and I think we can do it. So there you have it. I ended up I made picks of 3-1 for my picks. Like I said, I missed out on the Washington line, which was a line of 4. But all the rest of them I did end up winning on. So pretty solid. Saturday I didn't bet them. I'm going to bet them this coming weekend and do a little flyer. I'm probably going to throw a couple dollars down on the Ravens. They're still like a 10-1 dog to win the championship. So I figure might as well put $50 on it and see what happens. But definitely excited just to see what happens from here. So there you have it. Opening weekend of the NFL playoffs, wild card weekend. It's the full wrap up of everything. Huge shout out to the Ravens, to my dude Ray Lewis for a great game, and hopefully we can keep it up. I would love to get Ray another ring on his way out. You can't ask for anything better. All the other storylines, Peyton Manning coming back, any of those storylines would be just as good next year. This is Ray's last chance. So let's buckle down. NFL refs, let's give us some good calls. Goodell suspend some other players so we can get it. No, I'm just playing. If we're going to win it, I want to win it legit. So hopefully next week we'll be doing another victory celebration for the Ravens. You'll be seeing this jersey. I'm not taking it off. Well, I'm going to take it off during the week, but it's going to be on me permanently on game day. So with that said, I'm going to end this video. Thank you guys for checking everything out. All my videos, especially my NFL recap videos. And there you have it. So hopefully your team's still alive. Hopefully your team's going to be doing well, except if you're a Denver fan. My boy Steve Nash is one of my boys, poker buddies. I'm sorry, bro. I got to go against you. My Ravens need it more than your Broncos do. That's a fact. So as always, thank you guys for checking out my videos. I am Matthew Maley. This is MatthewMaley.com. You can always check out the rest of my videos on MatthewMaley.com. The new 2013 video blog is up. All the previous video blogs have been archived, so you can check out everything from 2010, 11, and 12, plus the new videos for 2013. You can also check me out on YouTube if you'd like. Just search for Matthew Maley Poker or MatthewMaley.com, where you can like, comment, and subscribe. You can also check me out on Facebook. Again, I'm at Matthew Maley Poker, where you can like and comment and suggest it to your friends. Check me out on Twitter. Follow your boy at Matthew Maley. Always tweeting up on there, you know, games, sports, all kinds of stupid stuff. I'm up on Twitter. And finally, check me out on Instagram at Matthew Maley Poker. Always put up new flicks. So until the next video, I'm signing off. Peace out, y'all.